There's this problem that every teacher, student, and probably parent has run into. The assigned reading that, well, it just never gets read. It's a challenge as old as the textbook itself. But what if the answer wasn't about pushing harder, but about being a little more clever? Let's dive into how a bit of trickery might actually lead to a whole lot more learning.
This quote, it comes from a real student, and it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? When the reading feels like a slog, dense, disconnected, or just flat out boring, even the most dedicated students are going to tune out. It's not a new problem, for sure, but it's one that really needs a fresh way of thinking. And we're not talking about just any old reading material. Think about the big foundational texts from economists who were writing centuries ago. Yeah, they're super important, but the language can feel like it's from another planet. So the question is, how do you get a modern student to connect with that? Okay, I know that sounds a little mischievous, right? But we're not talking about some kind of mean-spirited prank. We're talking about reframing an assignment so cleverly that students dive into the material without even realizing they're doing the heavy lifting of deep reading and critical analysis. So let's kick things off with Section 1, the unread textbook problem. Before we get into all the clever solutions, we have to appreciate just how big this problem actually is, because believe me, it's bigger than you probably think. So check this out. When students were asked to rate how often they actually did the assigned reading before class, on a scale from 0 to 10, the average was a 3. Not a 7, not even a 5, a 3. That tells you that most of the time, the reading just isn't happening. And the reasons why? Well, they're probably exactly what you'd guess. Students are pretty honest about it. They say the material is uninteresting, it's confusing, or they just figure they can pass the test without it. Someone even admitted to pure laziness. These aren't just excuses. They're symptoms of a system that's just not connecting.
So if the old school read this chapter and be ready for a quiz model is broken, what's the alternative? Well, the answer might be in a learning theory called constructivism.
Now, this is the big shift in thinking. Pioneered by folks like Piaget and Vygotsky, constructivism basically says that learning isn't something that just happens to you. You're not an empty jar waiting to be filled with facts. Instead, learning is an active process. You're a builder, using what you already know and your experiences to construct your own understanding of the world. So what does that actually look like in a classroom? It means learning has to be active, not passive. It's often social, working with others. And, this is the big one, the goal isn't just to memorize facts for a test. It's to deeply understand something so you can use that knowledge in totally new situations. All right, the theory is great, but let's get to the good stuff. How does this actually play out? This is where that trick comes in. It's all about learning by creating something. This slide just says it all, doesn't it? Over on the left, you've got the assignments we all know and, well, we know them. But on the right, that's the hook. Think about it. To create a believable Twitter profile for Adam Smith, you actually have to read his stuff. You have to get his ideas, his tone, his place in history. You're doing the exact same hard intellectual work, but the whole frame has changed. And there's a whole playbook of these kinds of creative projects. Students are making fake social media profiles, writing text message debates between historical rivals, building interactive timelines. Each and every one of these assignments sends students back to the source material, but this time they're going because they're curious, because they need to find something to create something. And you can really feel the difference in the student feedback. This quote just nails it. The assignment meets them where they already are, using a platform they get and enjoy. And the result? They're having fun, and oh, by the way, they're learning a lot. That's the magic right there. So we know the students are having a better time. We know engagement is way up, but that leads us to the most important question of all, right? Does any of this actually lead to better learning? Well, let's take a look at the data. This is the real make or break question for any new way of teaching. Fun stories are great, but what did the numbers actually say when students were asked which assignments helped them learn the most? Okay, no big shocker here. When you ask which assignments let them be creative, the social media projects win by a landslide. We're talking over 87% of students said the Twitter assignment helped them be creative a great deal or a lot. Now compare that to the old school quote analysis paper. A measly 3%. But here's where we get a really interesting twist. When you ask which assignment helped them learn the most, the winner wasn't the flashy, creative social media project. It was the timeline presentation. Almost 70% of students said that's the one that helped them learn a great deal or a lot. And this chart really drives that point home. When it came to actually studying for exams, a full 40% of students said the timeline project helped them a great deal. So that assignment, the one that forced them to organize ideas and thinkers in order, that was a seriously powerful tool for mastering the material. So here's the big takeaway from all this. It's not about creativity versus structure. You need both. It's like a 1-2 punch. The creative, fun assignments are the hook. They get students excited, they get them in the door, and they trick them into doing the reading. But then the more structured assignments, like that timeline, are what help them put all the pieces together and really lock in the knowledge. What this whole experiment really gives us is a powerful new model. It's a way to rethink how we teach not just economics, but really any subject that's built on dense, difficult texts. And really, it's a win-win. For students, the benefits are obvious. They're more engaged, more motivated, but think about it from the teacher's side. Grading these kinds of unique, creative projects is way more interesting than slogging through 50 identical essays. And maybe best of all, when every project is so personal and creative, it becomes almost impossible to cheat. And maybe that's the thought to leave you with. This approach isn't about making school easier. It's about making learning more engaging, more memorable, and ultimately more effective. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, the best way to tackle a really tough challenge is to reframe it as a form of play.